32. Committee Member DeBreeze.
Here.
Committee Member Maderos.
Here.
Committee Member Morris Lopez. Here. Committee Member Sabathia.
Here.
And Chair Martirana.
I am here as well. Thank you. Okay. Public comment. This should take a while. Right? So, we have no one in chambers and seeing no hands online. I think we are through with public comments. We will start this evening with a presentation by Erica Frazier, Planning Director, on the planning and development process. I expect this will be pretty interactive. So if I think everybody wants to, if you have questions, I think there's no reason not to interrupt and do that. If you're okay with that, Erica.
Feel free to interrupt, ask a question.
Okay, thank
Ask
you.
and go back, whatever you want to do.
Okay, and I think we're looking at that process, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, from when an applicant walks in the door to talk about a project. What are the steps involved in getting that process to approval, or to that project to approval?
So I'm going to break it up in three because there's kind of three varieties of the path that you need to go on. So the first one would be the most simplest project you could ever have. And that's going to be, there's land zoned, let's say for single family residential. And the general plan says it's single family residential and someone wants to apply to build single family residential. They're going to come in and apply for major design review and a tentative map, most likely in that case. They apply straight to planning. They'll apply first to planning. When an application like that comes in, the city has 30 days to review and provide comments on what is required to make it complete. So
To make it what?
complete. So
And that's
all
the
information-
application.
Yeah, that's all the information I need. So the tentative map has to show, obviously, the tentative map, the lot lines, all the information that we've required through the engineer. And then planning will require, what do the houses look like? What is the generalized landscaping idea? That sort of information. We're gonna review it. And within the 30 days, the state under the Permit Streamlining Act says we have to give them a list of everything they need to give us to make it complete. You left out some information, you applied for a tentative map, but you didn't actually give me the tentative map, that sort of information. Although not required, there are different deadlines within the Permit Streamlining Act. Cities usually, if they can, sometimes we can't because there is just such a lack of information. We do tend to try to give some design comments. So it could be, your street's not wide enough, it doesn't meet the section of the code. The general plan says your density is 8 and you're at 10, you don't match. So within that 30 days, we'll still try to give them some heads up of where they're going. We are not required to do it. We are then on hold until they resubmit. So resubmittals typically tend to take some time. They have to get their design team involved. They work on the plans, they resubmit, go back through that process again. Ultimately coming to a point where we're complete enough so we can make a determination on CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act. And we'll let them know within the parameters of the Permit Streamlining Act. So if this for some reason was exempt, let's say, it's an infill parcel less than 5 acres, or environmental work was already done previously and we can use it and we don't need to do any further review. Once staff is finish with our assessment. So our assessment is, does it comply with the municipal code? Does it comply with our design guidelines? Does it comply with the general plan? And once we feel comfortable with that project, hopefully, now there is an exception. But once we feel comfortable with their project, it would then go to planning commission. Planning commission on this type of project is the final decision maker. And then if planning commission approved it, that's it. Then they can go to work on their final map, go to grading, civils, and their building permit. If for some reason staff could not agree with the applicant, for example, let's say they are at 10 units to the acre and they can only have 8, and we can't get them to change their plans, nor will they apply for a rezone. We would ultimately go to planning commission with the recommendation for denial.
Gotcha.
If we wanted to, we could take it to a study session, if we felt like that was an appropriate path where they could get some direction from the planning commission to alter their plans. Sometimes it just is that we have to take it for denial because whatever we are telling them, they will not listen. And there is no way that the planning commission can waive that density requirement. So there would be nothing we could do in that case. If it was something more simple that we think that if the planning commission said, we are never going to approve this project, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, we go to study session. We are limited in what we can say because of the Housing Accountability Act. So there are limitations on when we can deny a residential project. And there are limitations on what I can require an applicant to do when it's residential. But staff will always work within the parameters of that. There just is some limitations. That is the simplest project that we could have. It gets more difficult when a project requires CEQA.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna, so the planning commission says yes, but then they go through a bunch of other plan stuff. You said engineering and so forth. At some point, if they're non-compliant at that point, then you're just not issuing permits for it, correct? But it doesn't necessarily go back to the planning commission
Correct.
or
So
anybody else.
so let's say a commercial project, for example, because those ones change all the time. Single family residential tends to not really change much. But let's say we approve a commercial building and they go into their construction drawings and then I don't know, all of a sudden they decide they need 4 extra roll-up doors that were never on their plans before. It has to be reviewed again within the parameters of our municipal code, telling us what happens with the modification. And unfortunately, our code is not clear. So it ultimately have to go back to the planning commission.
Okay.
Within that, so the planning commission, let's say, approves the project and then they have to go do all that work. Our code right now only allows a year for project approval, with the exception of a tentative map. Tentative maps follow the Subdivision Map Act, but our code right now only allows a year. HCD, as part of their, the Department of Housing and Community Development, as part of our housing element, it's likely that that's going to have to get changed because that window is so narrow. It takes typically to get from planning commission approval to I've actually pulled my building permit 2 years. That is the average time in most cities because construction drawings take a long time. Going through the grading civil process takes a long time.
Okay.
They have to get through all those processes before they get to actual applying for a building permit and pulling building permit. And we only give a year to pull a building permit. So it's a narrow time window.
I have a question. Can we
What's
ask? Okay, so
Sure.
I hear what you're saying, but I guess for me, but also for audience members and whoever else needs to hear it. So what you're saying, I'm not clear if you're putting it in context, if you're talking about a commercial development, a subdivision, are you talking about resident?
Any development typically takes almost 2 years from planning commission approval
Mhm.
to actually being able to pull a building permit. That is
So-
my experience, the timeline that lags between the two. So you also work on financing.
Mhm.
A lot of financing you can't get until after you get your first approval. And it's just like this long period of time. So
So you're not talking about a single residential dwelling.
no, like if I'm a house and I'm adding on to my
Mhm.
house or whatever the case may be, those are much shorter time windows. I'm talking about the larger scale developments.
So subdivisions and large commercial projects.
Or even look at Casa Rosa. Casa Rosa took a long time from approval to where we are today for where they're getting close to final. So
What about since you're speaking of a local project, like the market, they had to do, I'm assuming internal remodels, they had to go through a similar process as well?
So Planning is looking at the outside,
Mhm.
and if it's just on the interior, that is solely a building thing, so. If I'm a grocery store and I need to, I don't know, whatever I need to do, like I'm moving some cases around, I have some electrical work going on, maybe I'm moving the wall, that's only building. Planning does not get involved, we only get involved to make sure, one, they're not putting, electrical or HVAC equipment in a place where we don't want it, right, so like, very visible. We're gonna double check that the use that is going in a building is actually use that's allowed, so we'll double check that at that case, in those cases. Sometimes they do try to sneak some exterior improvements with the building permit, we'll verify that, but an interior model is really built,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
Yeah, so far what you've discussed, is there anywhere where the applicant can appeal?
Yes, so, well, there can be two appeals, right? So let's say the planning commission approves a project and a neighbor doesn't like it, or anyone within the city, they can appeal it to the city council. Let's say the planning commission denies a project, they can also appeal to the city council, and then city council is the final decision maker, and it's done technically with that.
Yeah, and when is the first time the public has access to it, the information?
Do you mean, what do you mean, the plan?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah,
So.
or somebody, a planning commission, you're gonna be sitting there, I can go there and review the plan with the planning or with the applicant and the public, right? And at the planning commission?
Maybe I don't follow.
Okay. All right, so you have an applicant that's gone to the planning commission. Is the public invited?
Yes.
Okay, so the public can speak to it and what have you. And so how is the public exposed to that?
So there's two ways, one in which, we don't have it, but we could have a list of ongoing projects on our website. Planning could do that, but it hasn't been done as far as I know.
It's not comprehensive. They have posted a number of projects, but I don't believe it's ever been very comprehensive.
So we could keep a list that people could be aware of. Any project that comes before the planning commission in a public hearing is noticed in the newspaper. And all the property owners within 300 feet are noticed as well of that project site. So all those people get a notice. They are not absolutely required to wait until a planning commission. They can always call the planning department and ask a question.
Once the material's been submitted, so if they file an application. And with all that supporting documentation, that becomes public.
It is public record.
So anybody can walk in at any point in the process and request to see it and copy it.
You cannot copy it unless we have a release from the designer because they are copyrighted plans.
Okay, but they can observe them
But they
and
can
look at them in.
I can
okay.
show over Zoom or whatever they want to do.
Okay.
They can physically look at the plans, they can physically look at anything that's in the file. If there is CEQA work, admin drafts where staff is still working on it is not technically something they can look at, but once we have the draft document, again, we'll get into that in a second, but again, it's public record, so that, let's say EIR is available for anyone to come to the counter and look at, as well as all those technical appendices.
Right, okay. Does that answer the question, David, that you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Staff
okay,
letters written to the applicant are also public record.
right,
Any comments we receive are public record, really anything in the file is,
okay.
can be viewed. The second kind of most common one that you see where we kind of take a step up is projects that require either a rezone or let's say general plan amendment. A rezone could be anything that I want to do a plan development. Or it could be, I'm single family and I want to rezone to mixed use, for example.
What's a planned development?
Plan development is a tool that we use in California. And it allows a developer to tailor their project to their needs. Our plan development ordinance isn't the greatest, but in a wonderful ordinance that some cities have, let's say, the plan development allows them to establish things like a different lot coverage, a different setback, all sorts of different requirements. And the reason that it's a nice tool is because usually the plan development gives the cities something in exchange for this change. And the change can be used to do things that aren't allowed anymore under typical zoning. So maybe you want to do small lot, single family residences where they have a shorter front yard setback to kind of activate the street, but that shortens front yard setback isn't allowed under the code. So
Right.
stuff like that. Or maybe they envisioned a senior community and they want to go with a 1-car garage, not a 2-car garage, and we're gonna have, again, smaller lots, and we're gonna have this different configuration. The code wouldn't allow them to do it as is, but the plan development allows them to propose it. And because it's a rezone, it's a discretionary action. You are not, the city council is the ultimate decider on that, but they are not required to approve it.
Mhm.
But it just allows for a different collaboration and more thoughtful planning.
Thank you.
So in that case, again, someone's gonna come in and apply, but the Permit Streamlining Act doesn't apply to legislative acts. So we have more time. Planning still usually tries to stick to 30 days because it's just easier to remember. We're gonna review it for completeness. Maybe we'll give them some comments the first round, maybe we won't, I don't know. But I think what I forgot to mention before is when that initial application comes in, it's routed to all the departments. So it's going to engineering, it's going to fire. You're gonna let public works know, you're gonna talk to your utility providers. If it's adjacent to a highway, you're gonna let Caltrans know. So so all these entities get to weigh in. Once we get through that process, it's most likely that CEQA is required, let's say, for something like this. So we have to go through the CEQA process. The CEQA process involves us hiring a consultant. We have to go through an RFP process to do it, which is a request for proposal. The council would ultimately elect our provider, and we'd have that document prepared. This is what makes this part of the process take longer because CEQA documents take a long time to prepare. You could look at anywhere from a neg deck requiring 4 months of time to an EIR requiring, I'm on one, we're at year 4 for another jurisdiction.
And neg deck is,
Negative declaration is, you've fully evaluated the project. There is no impact on the environment. The next step up is a mitigated negative declaration. That means I have fully evaluated all the environmental impacts. If I include these, 1, 2, 3 mitigation measures, I will mitigate the environmental impacts to a less than significant level. Then there's the EIR, an environmental impact report. That is, there are impacts. I have included these mitigation measures, but in no way can I mitigate it to a less than significant level. So the council has to adopt a statement of overriding considerations. So the council will then say, we understand that we can't fully mitigate this project, but we feel that this project is so wonderful and important that we want to allow it to continue. They still have mitigation measures, and most of those mitigation measures are trying to take everything to a less than significant level.
Right.
But there is going to be, let's say, 1 or 2 where we just can't.
Okay.
There's also an addendum to an EIR that functions more like a negative declaration. There's a minor change to a project, but whatever that minor change is, we fully studied it, changes nothing. We're just going to do an addendum to that EIR. The EIR still stands. Once the environmental review is completed, a draft comes to staff. The entire staff is going to review it to make sure we're okay with it. See if there's any errors. Do we not agree with any of the findings? Do we have more questions? Do we want more information? And that again is all the staff. So it's fire, engineering, building, everyone gets involved. We review it. Once the consultant has made all those adjustments, we're all fine with it. All the environmental documents go out for public review. The period of public review changes based on the level of document. And then there's public review period in which anyone can comment. They need to comment in writing. But the document is available for public review. Anyone can come and look at it. They can comment in writing, those comments, depending on the level of review, how we address them varies, but they do get addressed usually in some manner, although not required for a negative declaration or an addendum. From there, for a project of this size, let's say, we're gonna go to planning commission. Planning commission is making a recommendation on the entirety of the project to the city council. The city council is the ultimate final decision maker. Because rezones and general plan amendment are the purview of the city council.
Yeah, because the city council has to legislate that change.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
And general plan amendments are done by resolution, a rezone is done by an ordinance. And then again, both environmental review, a notice goes out, and environmental review is different in the sense that it's everyone within 300 feet when the draft is ready, everyone within 300 feet. And then all the agencies or people that have indicated to the city that they want to be notified of environmental reviews. With an EIR, there's a scoping meeting that happens way in the beginning of the process and it gets noticed the same way. So it's an early kind of, people can provide comments early on, like say someone, there's big open vacant land area and someone comes to the meeting and they say, oh, you know, I've seen burrowing owls out there. I think you better make sure that you take a look at it, or we have concerns for whatever reason. And that is, again, open to the public.
So I have a question about that 300 feet. That seems a pretty small distance. So you're talking 300 feet from the most exterior.
So you take the property line and then it goes through the 300 feet from the property line of the property. And then even if it partially touches the property, that property is included within the. So in most projects, it's actually kind of a lot of people that do get notified because that 300 feet swings around and hits a lot.
Yeah, there's an example tonight at the planning commission meeting, just FYI, when you talked about when a applicant makes an appeal, then this is a county jurisdiction, so they're at the county planning commission meeting tonight to appeal what was rejected last week. And I think if it gets rejected again, which I don't understand, because shouldn't it have gone to the board of supervisors?
I don't really deal with county, so I'm not sure what their process is, but
Okay. Because it's relevant to what she's talking about, so I can understand the concept.
so the appeal process is identified for every city.
Okay, because you were talking about how if it gets rejected at the planning commission level, then they can appeal and go to city council if it's a city jurisdiction.
So for city,
Right.
for city jurisdictions, it goes to city council.
Mhm.
Once the city, let's say I am a housing developer and I want my single family residential and I meet the general plan and I meet the zoning ordinance and I'm fine, and the planning commission denies me and I appeal to the city council and you deny me. Litigation is most likely next because they're gonna litigate under the Housing Accountability Act in most cases. Once you hit, city council and the appeal is denied, that's usually the end of it, but litigation is always a possibility for everyone.
Sure.
So with, sorry, last question. So with our work that we're doing here, our planning area of concern is all unincorporated out of the city limits. So we're looking at the process of going to county planning commission, and then possibly if it doesn't get approved, then it's the board of supervisors. So those are the entities that we're going to be having to communicate with.
Yes,
Something comes, so,
yes.
okay.
So
Um,
I don't know what the MOU is between the current, I don't know if there is a current MOU, no. So the county right now has ultimate jurisdiction over our sphere of influence. We're not involved with anything.
Yeah.
But if they approved a project, any citizen could
Yeah.
appeal.
and the appeal period was, I missed, there was 30 days or some, no,
So.
what am I, the 300 feet, I'm sorry, forgive me for a second,
10 days
right,
for there's no, well, it's 10 days for normal action. Subdivision map act calls for 14.
okay,
Or is it 15? It's either 14 or 15
Gotcha.
or max.
Okay. The 300 feet though, Jackie asked about the 300 feet. Is that determined by the city's code or is that a state?
That's state law.
That's a
So
state
the
law, so
state-
it's not our,
So
we
the
didn't
state
generate
has
that.
specific requirements for noticing
Yeah, yeah,
projects
right.
and noticing based on the type of project.
Yeah, no, it's something that's come up where somebody is like, everybody in the city should not be notified if this is gonna happen, and it's like, well, that's fine, except the state says it's this. We ran into an issue several years ago where the appeal was made outside the state's timeline, but the city's code didn't jive with that.
That can,
And so that was unfortunately a painful learning experience.
yeah.
Where so the appeal basically wasn't valid. So anyway. Okay, good enough. You-
So the hardest, most complicated is an annexation. So if someone wanted to annex, the process is essentially the same. Like the last example I gave.
Mhm.
Again, it's legislative. We're gonna go through environmental review. Planning commission is gonna make a recommendation to city council. City council makes the ultimate decision, but then LAFCO is involved after that. So LAFCO would be the ultimate final on that. And really what they're doing as part of the annexation is they're pre-zoning land, so they have to be within our sphere of influence. So they're within our sphere of influence. The general plan has designated a land use, right? Unless they want to amend it, which sometimes does happen with an annexation, but
Yeah.
they have to be within our sphere. They can't be outside our sphere and come in, and they have to be contiguous to the city. And what I mean by contiguous is, if this is my city limit and they are over here and this whole area is not in the city, that's not contiguous, it does not count. They have to be right here.
Mhm.
So as part of that, they go through our process, they get pre-zoned. So they get a zoning designation. And then that zoning designation becomes, let's say, official, final, once they get annexed through LAFCO. And so they go through the LAFCO process after city council.
But if they're outside the sphere of influence and want to be annexed, then they have to convince the city.
They would have to apply to the city and ask us to amend the sphere, amend the general plan, because we're not in the general plan. But then the other thing that comes into play is they're not gonna be within our service area, so we have to amend our service area too, so our master plan for that, so they're asking for a number of things, and we are never required. This is legislative, we are
Yeah.
never required to say this.
Okay.
And
Puts
if
us
they
in
were outside
control.
of our sphere, they might be outside, like way far away from the city limits, LAFCO is not gonna.
Yeah.
Unless there is some extreme, and there are some circumstances, so for example, if the city needed to build, if we couldn't connect to Hollister and we had to build a water treatment plant that's
Mhm.
nowhere, not in our sphere and is located outside, LAFCO has made exceptions for that when it's
Sure.
a city project.
It sounds like you're not really familiar with what the work product that's come out of this committee.
No,
Okay.
I haven't been part of it.
Okay, no, and that's fine. We have recommended and the city council has adopted a sphere of influence that is contiguous with the current city limits. Created an urban growth boundary that clearly states that no services will be provided outside basically the current city limits. And then what we're talking about tonight is an MOU that covers any projects that come up within a planning area that you can see is the green line is quite large
Yeah.
surrounding the city.
So let's say tomorrow that's finished and we're done with it,
Sure.
anyone outside of the sphere. They can't be annexed, they have to go through the process, like I mentioned, and they would have to ask.
Yeah,
will you
well, I
use
mean,
the sphere?
they can be, they just have more,
They have more steps, and when you amend your sphere, it's not the city doing it in a bubble.
no,
So when I
right,
amend my sphere, like I'm a person, I wanna come in, let's say this is 10 years down the road. The city is not in a bubble, the city needs to talk to the county, there has to be agreements with the county, LAFCO is also involved.
Yeah.
With that sphere of influence, wherever your sphere is, that's your boundary of services. Any connection from outside the city has to be within the sphere, and once it's outside of the sphere, LAFCO is not gonna approve it. That is part of the regulations, so
Gotcha.
that kind of caps that too.
Great, okay. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions? No?
Trying to absorb it right now as much as I can.
Yeah.
No, no, I think you did good. Thank you so much for that. That's well done, I might add, but it's great food for thought because we're talking about city. We're not talking about unincorporated land use. So I get it. I think
Great.
I think it's well done. I think the appeal process, whatever they got going,
Yeah.
the public, what have you, so.
Yeah.
But what I'm really concerned is what do we do outside the sphere?
Well,
And who do we talk to there? Who presents to us from the county?
Well, and that's.
Anyway,
That's the MOU. That's the MOU. That's what that's where the magic happens, Dave.
No, I what I'm saying here, when you look at the general plan for the county. And LAFCO seems to be the only place we can go when it comes to within the sphere. After that, it's open territory, but the county has complete control of that. So, in the process of doing that, whatever they do with unincorporated land, do we understand that, how that works? They're a city, we're a city. We think we know what policy is. And if we're going to change policy in unincorporated land, when it comes to discussing that, where do we go with that?
Well, I think you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Say.
and you, as you pointed out, are the general plans in terms of our philosophical approach to treatment of the land around us, because the reality is it's almost all agricultural land is a policy of preservation.
Yeah, and when it comes, and just to broaden our mind here, or to look at the outside here, when we develop those areas that are unincorporated, when and how does the public get involved? And what are their say? Where is that? Because if we have something being done here in the city, the public gets involved sooner or later.
Yeah.
And when we do unincorporated land, is there a public involved with that?
Absolutely. The planning
Okay.
commission, they have their own planning
Right,
commission.
so,
It's a county process,
Right.
County application, the county planning.
Right.
The county planning commission, county planners, director of planning.
Same thing.
Principal planner, Ariel, she's not on.
okay,
And so, all those meetings are open to the public.
right,
What we're trying to do is increase the knowledge, information, awareness, and San Juan public involvement
Yeah.
in projects that are proposed within our planning area.
okay. So my question, is there somebody from the county that can come to us, as Erica has done, and say, this is our process?
The
And-
process is the same.
It's gonna be the same.
Yeah, yeah.
The same.
Okay,
Anything the county is doing is basically following the same process because the state really tells me how I have to do my process. The exception is that the permit, like I mentioned, the Permit Streamlining Act says I have 30 days to review for completeness. I always try to give design comments off the get-go because I don't want to waste anyone's time or money. If it's gonna be, I am telling you, you are proposing a project that is not approvable. I'm gonna let them know. I'm not gonna waste their time. Now, I can't say what the county does in that end. They
Yeah.
might follow Permit Streamlining Act. They don't have to provide comments until it's complete. That would be an exception. But the noticing, the pathway to approval, it's the same. They're following the same process.
so even though the public is involved eventually, MOUs can be stepping on toes too. I mean, the public might say, hey, where's this information coming from? Oh, it's coming from Juan Bautista. Well, okay, so now what? There might be, we,
Who's
yeah, right. So I'm hoping we're covering that too, so that we're not stepping on toes when it comes to the public, making sure that their voice is being heard when it comes to projects and what have you.
No, we're providing feedback as if we were a member of the public.
Okay.
We're just,
Right.
we're asking them to
Right.
not just post it on a website, but to proactively send us their data. Let us review it, understand that we're going to provide them feedback, the manner in which we're going to provide it, and to give it great weight when they're deliberating.
Yeah, and the other thing, we are gonna change policy. Okay,
Okay. Any other questions for Erica? You guys are providing services to the county. I mean, you guys are,
City.
oh, the city of Hollister. Oh, I apologize. Okay. Got it. Not with the county. The county's doing it all in-house. Got it. Okay. Okay. Sure. I suppose Liz
I'm always cold.
Oh, I thought you were just
I'm
sort of.
always- I'm always freezing. You could have the heater on right now and I'd be in heaven.
Okay. Okay, so let's see. Where are we? That is a presentation. Okay, any other comments from the committee? Questions, comments? Well, the presentation, no?
I just think maybe
Uh-huh.
for me,
Uh-huh.
myself,
Uh-huh.
maybe one slide with the timelines on it would have been helping me,
Sure,
you know, like
understand.
the 14 days or whatever it was for public person to
Yeah.
appeal, the 30 days for this or that, I mean.
Yeah,
that-
I can tell you that we scrambled and appreciate very much you being here because I know it's pretty last minute. Because we'd hoped to have the county make the presentation, county planning make the presentation, but unfortunately they were not available because of that conflicting meeting. And so Erica was kind enough to join us and provide the feedback that we were looking for.
It's
So,
like a little bit like a foreign language to me. more
Sure.
than-
sure, sure.
It's just, I think the timelines for me are critical
E-
in terms of how we have. to
Yeah, absolutely.
respond And communicate with the county.
Yeah.
In regards to the project and our area of concern.
Yeah, of course. And that's obviously, that's one of the concerns we have. I think that, a lot of these things get into, what seems right and wrong or obvious or, logical does not necessarily hold true because it's, this stuff has come out of decades and decades of tweaking and state oversight versus local control, and it gets convoluted, I think. But anyway, any other board comments, questions?
My only other comment is looking through all this and it seems like we're marching towards, documents and understanding, memorandums of understanding that anybody can pick up and read. I'm hoping that if and when somebody with a great idea or a great project that will be of use to the city is still willing to jump through these hoops with us.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And I think though that the precedent's been set. The Rancho Vista where you live, they had to do all of this. Nothing that she's described at that third tier, that third level project, they didn't do. They had to go through all of that. The annexation, the sphere or the
Well, aside from being outside.
general plan. Well, they had to go through the general plan amendment. They had to go through all of those steps. So, I mean, clearly there's a willingness and in my experience going through that process at the time, they saw it as routine. They didn't think of it as it was just routine for them. So. Dan, any questions, comments? No? Okay. Okay, so we need to open this to public comment and let's see, seeing no comment in chambers. Do we have any hands online? Anybody online with any questions? Okay, good enough. Oh, somebody's hand went up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, I'm Dan Fernandez. I'm a faculty member at Cal State Monterey Bay. And I've worked with some of you before. My students work with the city of San Juan Bautista on a variety of projects, and we're planning to do one over the coming couple months. And I'm really just asking to find out if it has any context with what you're talking about in terms of the lands and the boundaries of the city and the county. And that is the 3-acre park that I think has been in a proposal stage for a while. And if it's off topic, I apologize, and I can talk to somebody else about it another time. But I wanted to find out if the 3-acre park has any relevance, the possible development of a 3-acre park. And I'm not even sure where, but I know Caitlin in the rec department is looking at that.
And can you, I guess, where is that park that you're,
Washington Street.
is it at Washington Street, at 156? Is that the parcel you're describing?
I'm not sure, to be honest, because it's so new to me as far as being part of the project. So you know a lot more about it than I do, but I wish I could tell you more about which one it is.
No, I don't believe it is relevant to what we're doing as it is within the current city limits. If it's what we believe it to be, I'd be happy to follow up with you if you have questions and try to get an answer for you. And if you want I'll give you my cell phone number if you'd like.
Great. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
I'm at 831
Uh-huh.
334 2015.
Great. And your name again?
Chris.
Chris.
And my last name is spelled MARTORANA.
Great. Thank you, Chris.
Sure, no problem.
Much appreciated.
No problem. Okay. Okay. Do we have any other comments?
Nope, no hands raised.
Okay, great. So any additional committee member comments, questions? No, seeing none. We will move on to the consent agenda. We have, let's see, we have 2 items on the consent agenda. Would anybody from the committee like to pull either the affidavit of posting or the minutes from the September 11th meeting? No. Would any member of the public wish to pull an item for separate vote or separate discussion?
No hands raised, Chair.
No, okay, seeing no objection. Is there a motion and a second?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. So we have a motion from committee member Sabathia and a second from committee member Maderos to accept the consent agenda. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Committee member Jabris,
Yes.
committee member Maderos,
Yes.
committee member Morris Lopez,
Yes.
committee member Sabathia,
Yes.
and Chair Martirana.
Aye.
Motion carried.
So review and discuss. Review and discuss draft memorandum of understanding between the county and city regarding outside its sphere of influence. So I hope that you guys have had a chance to look over the yet another draft version of the MOU. I asked the city attorney to send me the sort of the whereases and wherefores and other sort of, I'll call legalese from the prior versions. And so because I wanted to incorporate it all into a single document that was full and comprehensive. The version that I worked up is attached to the agendas that you guys all have. And it appears that we have another version that is a separate document. That, Jack, is what you were just looking at. And that was that is committee member DeVries' take on it. And I'll be quite honest, I had a chance to look it over. And I think he has, I personally think we should review his document. And because I love it. No, the free floating one that I think Liz, you
Yeah.
ran these off?
So this is the hard copy of it only.
Correct.
And then the one that's with the packet is a different version.
It is, yeah, it is. a
And
little different version.
today we're saying this is the version we want to go with. Maybe,
Uh, Dan,
but since it's been given to us during the meeting,
sure.
yeah,
No, I understand.
Okay.
I would ask that you guys take a look at it, if you don't mind. Starting with item number 5. That's where sort of the meat of
Which
the
one are we looking
discussion
at?
is. The one that is the free floating copy, the one you have in your hand.
What is this?
That is some information that Dave provided. It is not the MOU.
no, that's just something looking forward.
Right.
Not
So
about this MOU.
the document that you and I looked at this afternoon is attached to
Yep.
the agenda. But I would ask, after I had a chance to take a look at this, I would ask that you guys take a look at it. Maybe we could take 5 minutes or however long, 10 minutes, whatever, to read through this. They are very close, but I think committee member DeVries is, I like the way he sort of bullet pointed it, and he has added a few bits and pieces, but I think it's quite good personally, so.
So recess for.
We can sit here, we can recess if you guys would prefer to recess. I don't see the need to unless we need a bio break. Yeah. I don't know. Oh, thank you, Liz.
He's on the way. He's gonna be all right now. Almost a minute.
Sorry?
Whereas is.
Yeah.
Chris. Or what I said, yeah. I said city's position given great rate, but down here. Shall give the city's position, it should say great rate. City staff, is it planning commission? Oh, yeah, the way you stated it down here is perfectly clear. Well, there's a reason for that. And I can explain it to everybody, but the only one is. You want to sleep. Yeah, program separate meeting just. It seemed like sometimes that might be appropriate, other times it might not be. Purposely bad, but you're absolutely right. It's a big one. Okay. Like supervise flexibility. Okay.
Okay.
But this one is the formal pitch. Mandatory. Support.
John, did you receive the document?
Yes,
Okay. Have you had a chance to look it over a little bit?
I have.
Okay, thank you.
There's something that really strikes, like there's a huge difference in,
No.
so where is the one that. Issue or the area that you determine you like this one better than another.
Okay, so are we, has everybody had a chance to?
Kind of give us an overview as to how he has arrived to this conclusion.
Yeah.
as far as the document is concerned.
Is that all right, Jackie? Or would you like me to address that question specifically?
But how do you do that without the Brown Act?
Yeah, can I?
No, it's hard for
I'll,
them to-
right, and I'm sorry, and if we as a group say, you know what, we're moving too fast, we don't want to look at it, we can make that decision. Sure.
Exercises compare, you know,
Right.
and where's the difference? And so to do this in the guise of 10 minutes and just get it, it really isn't checking.
Oh, your mic, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No,
Yeah.
You're
But
right.
But
You're
it is a discussion.
absolutely
It is
right.
up for discussion. So my
Right.
question is,
We're not deciding on anything right now.
no, we're just
Well,
discussing, but.
Right,
Yeah.
so, but, and so if it's. Yeah, we can look at it point by point.
It's almost like a continuance because it wasn't in the packet even to look at it last night.
Sure,
We sat down and it was here.
I understand,
Thank
and
you.
that was I asked Dan to forward it to Liz and ask to request that it be distributed to everybody. As he worked on it and then previewed it and I liked it, and so I felt it moved the ball forward and felt it was a good idea for us to take a look at it. You know, we're in such a time crunch, and maybe I'll take this a moment to editorialize. How's that? I'm gonna tell you what I think. I think that we're at least 90% of the way there. And frankly, with either one of these two drafts, I think we're 90% of the way there. And I think we're at the point where we should be sharing this with the county immediately, because you know, there's some tweaks, there's some wordsmithing, the meat of it, the process, the intent, it's all there. And I think it's time you know, if we're gonna meet our timeline, then I think we're at the point where this is so close that we can get it in front of the county for feedback. And it doesn't mean we're not going to get the chance to review it again. Obviously, it's a back and forth. but we need to get something in front of them so they can start deliberating. So that, you know, and that urgency, that sense of urgency that was instilled in me at the city council meeting, the direction of the council, that's basically where I'm coming from at this point. So I like I said, I liked what Dan put together. I thought it was great. It distills it down just a little bit further, cleans it up just a little bit, and gets us even that much closer. So anyway,
Yeah.
and that's why I asked for him to send it to Liz and ask Liz to
Yeah,
distribute.
and I'm asking
Yeah,
committee member DeVries to
yeah,
give
absolutely.
us an overview
Absolutely.
and really
Agreed.
give us those places where you felt that needed greater changes and why you changed it from the last version.
Right.
Break down that explanation, we all comment.
Sure.
Mhm.
So
Sure.
coming into this, looking at it from, you know, jumping out of the city council and back onto the
Mhm.
committee side of it, you know, the big ask was like, when the city looked at it was like, hey, there's a lot of or city council, hey, there's a lot of content here that maybe is, you know, beyond the intent that was personally for me, hard to read and understand.
Mhm.
In our last meeting, the big ask was like, hey, can we take a swipe at this and make it so that everybody within all of our constituents can read this and really understand without bending their brain. I think both documents get from, I guess all three, from the draft we had before us at the last ad hoc meeting, and both of these distilled versions do that extremely well. Even just reading it right now, the content is all the same. It's just, but they're very good outlines of the process that we're asking for, and very clear. When I reviewed this now and then with you earlier, with the other version that we all have, just slight tweaks in language to understand and things like that, but like very, very good.
Right.
Good starting points. It was my, and not just a starting point for a conversation. I think we've done a great job with both these edits of like throwing out some of the, it didn't hurt my head to read.
Yeah. I think our committee has always had the intention of doing that. No matter what we threw out there, there was never saying that wasn't submit anyway.
Sure.
So here we are.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Dan, do you want to take us through it?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And I think with what committee member Sabathia just articulated, that was a good prologue, great prologue. And I think it helps a little bit to do a just quick historical review. You know, the committee, you can say got lost in the weeds, or maybe it was overreaching, whatever. But we can all remember that fateful council meeting night where it's like, whoa, wait a minute. So it was back to the drawing board at that time. And Chris and I both attended that meeting and committed to the council. All right, we'll go back to the drawing board. We'll make this real simple. And that involved really checking in on what's our objective here. You know, David, you mentioned it. How do we handle people who want to develop stuff on this map, but outside of our city limits? Because that's just going to be a county application right now. Will the county check in with us? Hey, what do you guys think? I mean, maybe they've been pretty good about that over the years. Will this community have an opportunity to go to that county planning commission and say what they think? Sure, of course, it's a public process. So this whole committee then, and this MOU, the only intent and mission statement, if there were one, or maybe we do have one, is to increase the amount of participation that this community has in a project that's otherwise going to go all on its own at the county. So how would this MOU increase our participation? Well, first of all, you can skip all the whereases and the parties and the term and all that stuff unless it interests you, but that basically has remained unchanged. Before I get into it, just a word on how we got to this. So after that city council meeting, I met with Don for like an hour and a half, a long time. he took great notes. I think it was after one of our UGB meetings too. And he said, I'd be happy to try to put something together. And I said, go for it. You're getting paid, not me. No, but he did. He did a good job. He came up with something. I think we looked at it
Yeah.
as a committee. And then there were some areas where we could, bring it into focus a little bit. And I think that was identified too. And I think committee member Sabathia referenced that. So that led the chairman, Martirana. Perfect, right?
Marvelous pronunciation. Thank you.
I've only butchered it for like 10 years. That led Chair Martirana to take stuff from our last meeting, and he came up with something. And he and I had coffee at Vertigo, and he said, what do you think? I said, I think it's a diamond. I just might need a little polishing. So I took here's the red line. Red lines are a pain in the butt to read. I don't know if anyone agrees with me, but red lines are really a challenge. But I printed one in case anyone's interested. You can see what the red line version looks like. And I came up with what's before you. So to go over that really fast, first I broke out A from B. Paragraph A, 5A, we're only talking about process, by the way, city attorney and fellow committee members. So go to paragraph 5, the first big paragraph, big capital A. That really describes a situation that doesn't have a whole lot to do with process. It's just the ongoing relationship we want to have with the county. And what is that relationship? How could we describe that? I've said as a euphemism, but I think it's true. We want to know what you guys know. And because they know a lot. One thing that Erica didn't get into a whole lot in her excellent presentation, but having done a bunch of county applications myself, by the time you submit an application, you have been in a conference room, either above the sheriff's department or in the little tiny one by Abraham's office or something, probably 3 or 4 times. The first time you go there is to say, hey, I'm Joe Schmo. I'm from Los Angeles. I'm thinking of doing XYZ. What do you think? And you just want to take the temperature of a planner or the planning director, Abraham Prado, or principal planner, Ariel Goodspeed, or whomever. Steve Lupi, the RMA director. Maybe you've talked to a supervisor for the district in which the project will be located. You're kind of kicking the tires, taking the temperature, and you're soliciting some feedback from those folks as to what the issues might be, whether this thing's going to fly or not. And that allows an applicant, a developer, to make the decision to go forward, because there's a lot of money involved with all the steps that going forward. Maybe they walk away from that initial little chat and say, I don't know, maybe we should try Monterey County, or let's look somewhere else, Ventura County, or something different. But still, now our county planning staff is aware of some folks are interested in doing something. Well, it'd be nice for us as a city to know that if it's happening underneath the mission or in San Juan Valley or otherwise in our planning area. So paragraph A addresses that we want to have an ongoing open dialogue to where they let us know things that they know of from these informal meetings. But in any event, we would like someone from county planning department to come here to San Juan on a quarterly basis and stand right there and say, here's your quarterly report. Is that ambitious? I don't know, maybe biannual, twice a year would be fine, but we want to have a regular commitment from the county planning department to stand right there and say, oh, and this one and that one. And that could be for not just the informal approaches that have been made towards them, but also things that have actually been applied for. Here's the status of the F1 racetrack. They went away. Or they just started knocking on the doors. They're meeting with people and we told them there's going to be some issues. It would allow the city then to provide dialogue too, and just be aware. So we don't get caught off guard. So that's why paragraph A is just like a general, we want to know what you know. Paragraph capital B then, 5B, talks about the process itself. You know, the intro there just says that we're going to collaborate. Of course, that's the whole idea, is to collaborate with the county. How do we collaborate? Well, first of all, when the county receives an actual application, usually has a check paperclip to it, turn it in at the counter or give it to one of the planners. We would like the county planning department to send that over here right when they get it. I didn't put same day or 24 hours or 1 week or anything like that. I just said shall be transmitted to the city when it is received by county. So that's up to you guys to say whether you think it should be within 48 hours or sometime certain, but we want to get a copy of that application. We want to see what it is that's being applied for within our planning area. Those applications typically are pretty scant. There's not a whole lot of stuff in them. They do ask for certain things to be attached, but it's not like they don't have anything. It's not just a name and address and a cell phone number. It'll tell you something about what it is they're trying to accomplish. So that will come over here to the city, to Don, Erica, whomever, and they'll say, oh, okay, somebody's applying for something on Bixby Road. What is it? A residential housing subdivision, 12 units. Oh, where are they going to get water? I don't know. They say they have a well. Okay. And what about sewer? Well, maybe they'll try to do septic. Well, we got some issues about that with that. So, you know, our city staff will do the initial cut when they receive this application. But then the next thing, B, is that I think we as a city, and this, by the way, let me take a time out here. So this is just a synthesis of all the stuff that we've talked about for months and months and months. What are we trying to accomplish? We want to know what's being proposed in the planning area. What's the best way to know? We'll have the applicant come over here and pitch us. Have the applicant stand right there, and they can bring slides and PowerPoints or aerials or whatever they have to put their best foot forward. And it's going to be a total sales job. There's going to be no analysis. It's not about that. It's just, please come to San Juan Bautista, Mr. or Mrs. Applicant, and pitch your project to our planning commission. Maybe we think it's got some possibilities. Maybe we hate it. It'll never work. The F1 racetrack, for example, got a lot of real strong opposition right away. It seemed like that proposal right out of the gate was met with a lot of strong feelings. I was agnostic. It never really got far enough along for me to form an opinion, but that would be an example of a time where an applicant could come here and pitch all the reasons why an F1 racetrack made sense on the Nyland Ranch. Okay, so after that, they're finished with their presentation, then the chair of the planning commission could say, okay, I want to open up public comment. You know, if it's a pretty significant project, there might be a bunch of people here who have something to say about it, so they can all weigh in. Great. Close the public comment. Now the commission deliberates, and the chair should, I would envision the chair saying something like, well, what do the commissioners think about this idea? Well, I think maybe, but I think, 100 units is too many, maybe more like 12. Oh, okay. So if they reduce whatever the deliberation is. Our excellent city clerk could take notes and, working with the chair and the commissioners and so forth, develop a letter back to the county. Applicant Joe Smith appeared before the City San Juan Bautista Planning Commission on this date, presented their project, and here's what the city had to say about it. It could maybe bullet point issues that the county should be aware of. It could maybe synthesize public comment. If everyone in the public was concerned about this one issue, it could represent that. I like the idea of a letter being drafted to be signed by the planning commission chair, because doing a letter would allow that letter to be reviewed and added to issue spotting, all that stuff by someone like Erica, I think we should have this in there. When the county processes this thing, they should be aware of that. Ingress, egress, traffic, noise, lighting, all those things. It allows, so this letter could be a collaborative effort on our side, behind our doors, of the planning commission, the planning staff, city manager, maybe some council members are going to come to the meeting and hear about the project and they have something to say. All of it could, and it could, then the whole thing could be reviewed by the city attorney. Yep, it looks good, Mr. Geffen might say. And the letter is sent to the county. All right, so now what happens to that letter? We're down to C. That feedback would then be transmitted over to the county. They would stick that letter into their file. Each county planning application is assigned a planning file number and a San Bernardino County number. So there's a hard file. So that letter goes in there. But most importantly, I think, is that the planners at the county would say, whoa, okay, it seems like we really would be paying attention to water or traffic or what have you. And so the hope would be that that our initial input would be taken into consideration as the county otherwise processes the application. Erica described the environmental process under CEQA. That's a very involved process. And it, I think, would be appropriate for the county to take in consideration what the city had to say about after hearing the pitch in the preparation of the whatever environmental document is going to accompany the application. Could be a mitigated neg deck, it could be an EIR, it could be a lot of things. But the city's feedback would be taken into account, is the hope. That brings us to D. A lot of times Erica will tell you how you condition. That staff may think, yeah, this project is appropriate to be approved because it meets the general plan, it meets zoning, it meets everything. But it needs to be conditioned the right way. What are conditions? Conditions are the fine print of an approval. Could be hours of operation. It could be the lighting or noise or all of the things that you want to make sure you get right as a municipality. Those are all the conditions of approval. Since this is a county project, by definition, the county therefore will be authoring those conditions of approval. And they do a good job. County does a nice job, but sometimes maybe they miss one. Or sometimes maybe they get it a little bit wrong or off. For example, a condition of approval might be you need to improve the roadway 60 feet from the center line onto your property. You think, whoa, wait a minute. The whole road's only 20 feet wide. Why 60 from the center line? So maybe it's too much, or maybe it needs to be adjusted, whatever. It would allow our planning staff to look at the proposed conditions. Maybe they're perfect, in which case it's easy. Then the transmission or the communication back to the county is great job on the conditions, guys. Maybe they missed one, in which case the response might be, these are good, but you might want to add X, Y, Z, A, B, C. I think this happened, Don's not here, but I wasn't here either, but I think this happened on a subdivision that Mr. Dazzle brought on that road going towards the retreat. County was nice enough because there was no MOU, but they weren't, I don't know if Don requested them or they were just nice enough to send over the proposed conditions. And he gave it to my friend David Mack, who was Harrison Associates, that they were the planning vendor at the time. And David Mack said, well, we should add a few things here. These are good, but we need to add a few. So I think he added a handful of them. That made sense. And then once those new conditions were sent over to the county agreed, included them with the county's conditions and slapped that onto the project. And those now became the conditions, authored and originated from San Juan Bautista, now are on a county approval. So it's nice. So EJ mentioned to me on a sidebar, what about, because I told him, I said, good catch, because he totally caught me. I left D purposefully vague. And I'll tell you why. It says, oh, and by the way, what I just said about conditions is also true with regard to what Erica described as mitigation measures. Those are a little different than conditions in that you're still trying to lessen something bad. But a mitigation measure it's not bad necessarily, it's just an impact on the environment that you're trying to reduce, you're trying to bring it down. Like, this is gonna have an impact, but if you don't do this, then it's gonna be okay. So that's a mitigation measure. So I think the city might want to take a look at those too, if the county's preparing those, especially on an egg deck. EIRs are a little different. So all that stuff comes over here. All right, so if it all looks great, or if it's pretty straightforward, maybe there's a couple things I forgot or could be added. You know, maybe Erica and Don can handle that whole thing. But let's say that there's something that might be a little bit controversial, or, well, we should really require that. It should be required of this applicant that they do X, Y, Z. But you know, that's going to cause them heartburn, or for some other reason, it's going to be a lightning rod. Well, in that case, then this D provides flexibility in that you could have a planning commission meeting just on that issues. Now we got, and I know what she's thinking, holy smokes, how long is all this going to take because of the Permit Streamlining Act? And I'm totally aware of that. And the short answer is, I don't know. But I'm sure the county will let us know if they think, man, we're going to be running out of time on this stuff. I don't know. It all depends when they're deemed complete over there. But if they keep sending them NOIs like they always do, then hopefully we won't run out of road with time wise. But in a perfect world, we would be able to provide input on the conditions and the mitigation measures and have that input go back to the county. So is that concrete enough on the conditions and mitigation measures?
It is, but the reviewing, the part that's vague is who and what is reviewing, and very clear in
Right.
the statement of.
Condition for learning for environmental. County shall forward the proposed conditions and mitigation measures. I know, but I'm reading D first.
Which letter are you referring to?
D's vague, E is
Got it.
explicit, and my
I got
question was why not use the same wording from E in D?
And the answer is maybe we can. I don't know. Let's look at it. And or mitigation measures for an environmental document. County shall forward the proposed conditions, mitigation measures to city for its review and consideration. So that's the word, the city for its review and consideration. So how would the city review those? Well, probably give them to Eric and say, hey, what do you think of these? Are they adequate? Are they inadequate? And then she's gonna have an opinion, and maybe her opinion is no, they look fine. Or maybe she says, well, I think we can maybe add a few or whatever. But she would be the part of the its. Which may include review by this but may include the planning commission, like I said, to allow for. I can tell you guys, Don Reynolds wanted a whole separate meeting just on planning commission meeting, just on conditions and mitigation measures. And when I was writing this, I thought, well, sometimes it's not going to be necessary.
I'd like to get through the basic
Okay,
review the process, and if you can
well, we're at the end.
get that through that, and then we'll come back and talk about.
Okay, so just draw, I was just trying to be sensitive to
No, I
to
appreciate
EJ's
it. I appreciate it.
concern, because I think I agree with him. So last one, E, and then finally, county's done. This E is the big ticket, that's what is the most important. So the county's done, they're gonna schedule it for a county planning commission hearing. At which time the county planning commission will approve it, the application, or deny it. Erica mentioned that rarely will it get to a planning commission with a staff recommendation of denial. And the reason for that is because the staff works out, Erica and others in her profession work out all those kinks before it gets to a planning commission. Only in the last, I mean, I don't even think I've seen a recommendation for denial. Have you ever done that?
I have.
You have in Santa Barbara?
No, so I've done a recommendation for denial in Hollister recently,
Really?
and I have done recommendations for denial before. It is much more difficult now because of the Housing Accountability Act, but I have done it where they don't meet code for whatever reason.
And they just push you anyway.
And
I don't care. I
they
don't.
refuse to change their project, and so there is no choice because
Right.
also within the permit streamlining act, I have to go to hearing within a certain set amount of time.
Mhm.
So once that project is deemed complete, I have a specific set number of days based on environmental review when it has to go to hearing.
Mhm.
If I can't work it out, and there are people that are very stubborn. So I have brought forward a recommendation for that, and it was ultimately denied.
But the denials are, recommendation for denial is pretty rare. So usually by the time it's ready to go to the county planning commission, getting back on track. It'll be a recommendation to approve with these mitigation measures on an environmental document, these conditions of approval, et cetera. San Juan has seen all this stuff before. So now the city of San Juan Bautista would like an opportunity to say we support this project or we oppose it at a meeting. And it's always been, I think, the desire of this committee and this city to have as big of an influence or an impact on whether a project is going to be approved or denied by the county as possible. But here's the rub. It's not our ground. It's jurisdictional. It belongs to the county. So you may remember one of the reasons we got kind of lost in the weeds is we wanted to be the lead agency and we want to do this. We were trying to do everything to really up our relevance in an application, a process, and a project that's otherwise going to go through purely county. So we want, at the end of the day, what you want are developers to view San Juan's position in support of their project as a great prize. Something that they're really going to try hard to get. Why? Well, because they can go then to the county planning commission with that feather in the hat, right? San Juan supports it. Look, I got a letter from the planning, signed by the planning commission chair. They're in support on behalf of the whole city. They support it. We had a meeting. We took public comment, all that stuff. The city of San Juan supports this. That's pretty compelling for them at their county planning commission. But the other ends, and therefore, because they want that feather in the cap, they want the opportunity to say the city of San Juan supports it. Maybe they will do more than they would do otherwise to tailor a project in such a way that it's more acceptable to us. What if it's a project and we think there are too many units, or that's too big, or that it's in the wrong spot, or what have you? They're not going to be that willing to change it around, make modifications, reduce it, give it a haircut themselves, if they don't care about whether San Juan supports it or not. We want them to care. And so that's why we have the word city's position communicated to the county in the letter. We just talked about that. And then lastly, the city's position given great weight. We want the planning commissioners of the county planning staff, the applicant, not the applicant, so county's planning staff and commissioners and the board, if it goes up on an appeal, to give what San Juan has said great weight. And that's about all we can do, because what we say doesn't control, what we say does not determine, what we say is not the last word. The county has the last word.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anybody need any more time to sort of noodle through it a little bit? Or are we ready for comments? Okay. I'm good. Okay. Jack, you want
Chris,
to?
may I just-
No, you don't have to start. Are you ready to discuss it or you wanna, you wanna take a little more time to discuss? Do you wanna take a little recess and just take some time? Okay, okay. David, do you?
I'm liking what I'm hearing.
Good.
Yeah, so I mean, still thinking.
Okay,
I think we're on the right track.
okay,
I think we still, right now, I'm thinking we need some feedback.
right, from the county, you mean. Yeah, okay.
I don't think the county's gonna have a problem with any of this.
And
And
I'd like to rein this in.
I know, but I wanted to add one thing,
Okay,
and it's just a recap. Because what I said got a little bit wordy. I realize that, but I'm going through all this stuff. But if you step back, especially if you use those little point headings that I did in bold, all we're really saying is, hey guys, if you get an app, first keep us up to date on an ongoing basis. Secondly, though, if you get an application, send it over to us. And then have the person that's applying come talk to us about it, present it. We'll tell you what we think. And we wanna collaborate as it goes through. And then when you're done, we wanna say whether we support it or not. And when we do say whether we support it or not, we want you to pay attention and care about what it is we have to say. That's all this does. That's it, nothing more. How could it be more simple than that?
so sounds like you think we're pretty much ready to start talking to the county. Okay. Jackie, do you want them a couple of minutes?
I just think that both documents that
Uh-huh.
said.
Is your mic on?
Oh, yeah, never on, so sorry, so.
Pete, you want to?
Go ahead.
Say that louder.
Go ahead. So anyway, looking at both documents,
Uh-huh,
it looks like a lot more is in the one we got tonight from Commissioner DeVries, but I think it's the font size is a lot larger, so I mean.
oh, yeah,
Yeah, but there's also extra things in there that I'm not in full agreement with.
okay,
I actually
Sure.
liking the more direct and simplified version that's to the point. I mean, I don't see that. We have to have these bold headings like continuing dialogue. I mean, I don't know, we kind of, I think for me.
Yeah.
Part of it is like, what's the style of the people that we're gonna be submitting this to? I mean, and Dan, I know his profession is an attorney, he's a very good story presenter. I appreciate all the work you put into it, but I'm thinking. What is the county? What is their style? It's pretty direct, cut to the chase. So I'm finding that this is a lot of extra words.
okay,
I'm liking the simpler version, maybe some additions of what he's put here and there, but. And I think I'm like David, let's just give them something and get their
Okay.
feedback
okay,
because it's time.
right, okay, so you feel like we're far enough along that it's ready to now?
Yeah, but I'm
Okay.
not 100%.
You
Which
prefer,
one?
you
I
prefer the
prefer,
one over the other?
I
Okay.
prefer one that's pretty concise and direct.
Okay,
And also with
David.
regards to what their style is, who we're presenting it to.
okay,
Yeah, and I think a good point in dialogue, that's what we do is to clarify things, make sure we hear what we hear.
Yeah.
We're saying what we're saying, so, it's somewhat wordy, but at the same time, again, that's part of the dialogue.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
EJ,
Point of clarification and question. So we need to decide to send this to our city council, who then votes to transmit to the county, or direct to county.
Nope, the city council gave us direction to go talk to the county,
Okay,
to go and start negotiating that.
I'm
Yeah,
just
so
point of
no.
clarification. I
Yeah.
want to make sure everybody understands that.
Yeah, it's an important question.
Yep.
Yeah, so there was not direction to take it back to the council.
It's not weird. I understood that we should go, the permission was to, I want to make sure everybody understands that.
Yeah,
So that,
yeah.
some member of the community doesn't say, hey, these 5 here started talking to the county without city council approval or whatever, just
Well,
reminding.
that's our next, there's an action item on the agenda following this that
Yep.
talks to that a little more specifically.
Yeah, I am, now that I understand the intent about why D is vague and understanding that, I don't have as much of an issue with it. I had some other notes that don't my notes don't necessitate change. It's just kind of
Sure.
as dialogue, like for B, what happens if I mean, it's kind of the same deal in terms of like the city doesn't get, it's not our land. We don't get to say yay or nay, but we can support or oppose. But what happens if the applicant refuses to give us a presentation? Probably just the thoughts that pop in my head. It doesn't look good on them, but like it could still go through all the approval phases.
Well,
If they
no,
choose to say, hey, yeah, I don't really want to go talk. I just want to do my thing.
it is. I think that, yeah, I mean,
They pay a fine.
yeah.
Directly with me.
Yes.
I think the reality of it is that they're, they certainly could opt for that, but then they're relying on what the city's gonna, and if they're paying attention to what the rest of this says, and it's giving us great weight in the decision in the later stages,
Well,
by they're committing the county in theory if this MOU goes through in this sort of form. But yeah, I mean, it is definitely a danger.
I have two things to say on that. First, at the very beginning stages of a project, developers,
It's all happy.
you can't shut them up. I mean, they love to give presentations and they love to come tell you, especially since it's not going to be adversarial at that point. Like I said, it really is going to be a pitch like Shark Tank. Secondly, there is already something like that the county has, and city may too, and Erica touched on it. It's called a public scoping meeting at the beginning of an EIR. And sometimes Ariel and Abraham will have a public scoping meeting, even if there's not going to be an EIR. They just think, for this one, we think we want to have the public weigh in early. So this is kind of going to be a public scopy kind of feel to it, when they come and just make their pitch. If they don't want to do it, or if they skip it, well, I don't know. We can talk about that. What's the downside to them?
It's almost like marketing and advertising,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
and it's a positive thing.
Yeah, you would,
Why would they not
And
do
we're looking for everybody to support it. That's all there is to it.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, if they
The more
thought
the
the
merrier.
project was
Yeah,
crap, they
yeah.
probably wouldn't be doing it in
Yeah.
the first place, so. EG, did you have other comments, questions?
That's it.
Okay. Dan, did you have anything to add?
No, but his point's gonna involve me thinking about it all night.
Okay.
What do we do? They just blow it off. Never mind.
Okay. So do the two of you have a preference as to which of these two you would prefer to move forward, or?
I like Dan's cut.
Okay. Dan, you.
Dan like Dan's cut.
I think Dan probably likes Dan's as well. Do you? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, I want the.
Well, not because,
No,
I wrote it. No, just because I just wanted it to be boom, boom,
I understand.
boom, boom.
Okay.
And I wanted to break out. I can also give you guys if Don was here, he would tell you that paragraph A of that continuing dialogue, that was something he felt very strongly about.
Yeah,
having.
that came from him. As
That
I
came from
understood.
him, and I agreed with him at the time.
Paragraph
5A.
5A.
He wanted ongoing dialogue, collaboration,
Big A, yeah.
and he wanted
Yeah.
regular presentations.
Okay. Yeah, of course.
No, because your microphone's not on again.
So I guess my other concern
Yeah.
is with both of them.
Uh-huh.
The timelines that
Yeah.
Miss Erica referred to, from when they get the application and they review it and the clock starts ticking.
Yep.
And there's verbiage in here, and I
Sure.
can't point it out, but it's very subjective. So how do we put that in there that we want to make sure that we're working within the time frame of when one step goes to the next step, so that it's not, oops, we forgot,
Yeah, I think that,
because then it's pointless.
sure, no, I think that's an excellent point. And I think the challenge is that I think we need the county's input at that is absolutely a question that should be put to them as we hand this off, that, hey, not only are we looking for you to review it as to legal legality and appropriateness and fitting within the construct of the county's general plan and so forth, but also feasibility. And we've all looked at it. We think, and the staff has looked at it and said they think it's feasible. Don's gone through that process, but we're also looking for the county to give us that feedback. And again, that's why I think we need to move this forward. So,
If I
Right.
could make a suggestion.
Mhm.
give me just a moment. Let me finish here.
Okay.
Did you have another question or comment there or follow up?
And then on our end, we know that on the county, they have a much larger bandwidth because they have staff.
Yeah, much more.
We are like, she is our planner right now. So moving forward, we're gonna have to carve out that individual who's ever gonna do it, and I'm just gonna use you because you're here, her time.
Yes.
And so she's gonna be having to be the one that's gonna be that point person.
Yep.
Not the chair of the planning commission of the city of San Juan.
Yeah.
So it's a very coordinated effort,
Absolutely.
and we don't want to miss timelines because we know what happened with Copperleaf.
Yeah, absolutely.
They-
But, yeah, your point's absolutely well taken. I lived through Copperleaf and that debacle, and that is a major reason for me sitting here right now, because I never want to relive that. That was horrible. It was, it was a complete disaster. So anyway, Erica, you had
So in
comment?
here where we're saying, we're gonna schedule it, let's say for the planning commission, 30
Yes.
days. We only have one meeting a month, so
Yeah.
we're kind of limited in that time frame. And then let's say they give it to us 10 days and they brought it in.
Yeah,
Permit Streamlining Act does not apply to legislative acts.
right.
So if it required a rezone or general plan amendment, it doesn't apply. But
Right.
let's say it does for
Right.
whatever reason. In order to kind of get around the state's regulation, because you can comment, but if part of your comment is, I would like to see XYZ, that's a completeness item.
Mhm.
After that 30 days passes, you can't ask for it. And after the 30 days, even if we forgot something, you can't ask for it later. That first letter is a comprehensive list. You cannot ask for anything else again. The one exception would be if someone didn't give us a landscape plan and we said, you need to give us a landscape plan with these items on there on our, whatever list.
Uh-huh.
And they gave us a landscape plan and they didn't meet all those requirements that we have on our submittal list.
Sure.
We can ask for those items.
Right.
My suggestion would be that if we're going with this 30 days, that as part of the completeness package that the county would be giving an applicant, it's an that this review is required. That way, if we didn't hit the 30 days, it's still on there as you must do this. Or it's part of their processes that requires it in a step, so then it's therefore a requirement where we could still not run afoul of the permit streamlining.
That's a great, thank you.
I love that.
Absolutely part of requirement for,
I love that. I was thinking about that. Could this be folded into the completeness? Because when a project or an application is deemed complete, or the notice of incomplete that she's referring to, that's a big deal.
Okay.
That's a really big deal. So if we could have this process, as you described, be a part of that,
okay,
problem solved.
sounds like
And that's what
we're,
we have, when we talk to the county, that's what we have to say.
okay. I've got a good note on it.
But believe me, they'll be super uptight about the time. They'll let
Okay,
us know.
thank you for that, Erica.
Great idea. I love
Okay, as I said earlier, I feel like we're at the point where we need to move this forward, and I think we're well past 90% from our standpoint. And I think we're ready to rock and roll. My personal preference is also for Dan's version. It is a little more wordy. But I think it incorporates some language that is necessary for clarity's standpoint. For clarity's sake, because you get to a point where there's stuff you have to include in a contract, and so there's some language that I did not include, but I think you clarified. So I think it's important. So okay, I think we have reviewed it and discussed it. we've had the report, had committee member questions. I'm gonna now open this up for public comment. Seeing none in chambers,
Sure, can we ask John if he has any preliminary thoughts on his review?
certainly, actually, yeah, why don't we do that first, John? If you have anything to add.
I certainly agree that it needs to, it needs to get to the county sooner rather than later. And just in looking at the two documents, comparing them, I just, it's kind of an evolving document that I find, has further refinement with Dan's comments and his ads. So I think, that it's just taking it to the next step and just trying to explain the process more clearly. And I think it does that well.
Okay, thank you.
That was the goal.
Okay, so again, we have no one here in the chambers from the public, so, do we have any, questions or comments from the Zoom audience? No hands raised, so we will close public comment and bring it back to the committee for any final comments or questions. David, no? Jackie, anything to add?
Last question, who was the author of the one that was, the other one?
The one included with the packet today?
Yes.
I was.
Okay.
Well, let me say, yeah. So I took the version that we reviewed at the September 11th meeting, and incorporated comments that I had recorded from that meeting, as well as just some thoughts of my own. I then asked John Giffen to send me the language related to the whereases, the sort of the legalese that precedes the material we reviewed last time and followed it, so that we had what would amount to a complete document. The one thing that is missing from that document is the map, which I asked Liz to print and leave for all of us. And that would then obviously accompany this. It's referenced, yeah, I believe it's referenced in the document as Exhibit A, so we need to get that attached when we pass it to when we choose to pass it to the county. But yeah, ultimately it was my editing of what had been provided by Don Reynolds and John Giffen. So that final version of it that was in the packet was my work product of, or my refinement of their work product. Okay.
Okay.
EJ, anything? Yeah.
No further comments.
Yeah. Good.
No, other than, I keep thinking about what EJ said. What happens if they blow it off? I think we have to, and this is gonna be important to carry forward. I don't know where I would even make a note of it. Maybe we should all just remember to bring that up with the county.
Yeah.
Whether we use Erica's, include it with the completeness basket of stuff, or otherwise try to prevent applicants from saying, yeah, no, thanks, we don't want to do that.
Okay.
And what's the downside if they do?
Sure. I think I think we need to consider that
Yeah,
as individuals.
just don't want to forget about
I
it.
have a comment. So if they do decline, because it's not a mandatory part of the process for them to present their project to the unincorporated county area, we still, I believe, exercise our rights to write a letter.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. And
We don't,
and each
it's
one
not,
of us can show up.
it's not contingent on them being
No,
here.
No,
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
You know where
Absolutely
that
not.
chambers building is, where the board meets?
Yeah.
You know how to get there?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
of course. Are you being facetious?
Very,
Yeah, I know you
very,
are.
very
Yeah.
nice.
Can he help it?
No.
No, but Jackie, I'm making a joke, I'm making a joke to prove your point. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're gonna weigh in, for sure.
If I could interject a little, if it is a requirement for completeness, it is a requirement they have to do before they can go to hearing.
Right.
So they
We
have to do it. So it's
understood.
not a they
Understood.
get to
Understood.
skip out. If it's part of their process, their official process, it's also a process they'd have to follow. So they're
Understood.
required to follow it in that way.
So she said.
Okay, so Yeah, Jack.
So the requirement though, Erica, is for the county, but we can't as a city require that.
Correct.
So it would be the county's requirement. So let's say so every city is required to have a list of items that are necessary for completeness. And this they could then put it on that list. And that is one of the things they have to do to be complete. The
Understood.
reason that it saves us a little bit is with trying to come to a planning commission meeting. Number one is if they didn't do it, they're incomplete, right? Number two, they have to do it to be complete. So that in a sense forces them to come to us, should the county do it that way. The second way would be as part of their processes, the way they
Needs to be in there.
develop or the way they review projects is it would become a component of that. Again, it forces them into it as part of that
Just make this
process.
document better.
If the county brought forward an application that was incomplete and did not follow the MOU and did not follow their own processes, that's a layer that we could use as part of our
Understood.
argument for why it's brought
Right.
forward.
As to the okay form. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Good.
Well, yeah, but I don't want to give this short shrift because like I said, I want to carry, I just leaned over to EJ. He started this whole thing, rightly so. So I hadn't even thought about it. But I think I would propose to the committee that one further revision be made, and that's just with the interjection. Maybe we could have Erica write it because the county would have to agree to make what we're talking about be a part of their completeness. We can't tell them what to do to be complete, but they can say, all right, and we can tell them why we think it's important, right? So everything that Erica just said, put that in the MOU and have them agree to it.
You have that as a note, though.
I do. And
I
so
think we take this draft, we have that as a note, and we suggest and ask, like, hey, this is what our take of an MOU is, comments, concerns, additions, subtractions. And then once you have a final that they agree on, like, hey, we would like you to make this part of your completeness package.
Right.
okay.
But don't you think we should change whatever document we show to them to say that?
Yeah, I think what I would, I guess what I would suggest is that I have the notes. I'll circle back with Erica. Check it by, run it by John for gut check it with John and use that to then be what we would pass on. And I will distribute it. That final document will be distributed to the committee as well. At the same time, it goes to the county.
You know where I think it could live is in 5B.
Yeah.
Right there. Before you start going through the steps,
Understood.
and 5B could say something, by the way.
Yeah.
You better do this stuff or you're not going to be deemed complete by the county.
Okay. So if you guys are comfortable leaving that with me to then to get updated and give me a little latitude in updating that for then forwarding at when and our the action item that's coming up on the agenda next refers specifically to that action or to the distributors. Okay. Since we had a little bit of a round robin there that I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to chime in on. I'm going to open it back up to public comment in case anybody online has any questions, comments. Seeing no hands, I think we'll move forward. Any final comments from the committee? No, all good. Okay. Then I think are now on to item number 6 on our agenda action. It's the 6A is direct the chair to begin outreach to supervisors and senior county staff on the intent of the agreement. So what I am asking is for you guys, for the committee to basically direct me and empower me to go to start initiating contacts with senior staff at the county and supervisors if it's deemed appropriate, and just get this thing out there so that we can start soliciting feedback. And so I guess that's about as simply as I can put it. So I'll make those tweaks we just discussed, run it by John Giffen, distribute those to the committee in preparation for our next meeting, and then start doing that outreach, starting with the county staff, RMA staff, and potentially the supervisors at this point, so that we can start soliciting feedback. Oh, and county, county council.
So is that a motion?
No, it's not a motion at this point. We need to discuss it, just see if
Okay.
anybody has any questions, comments. But that's what that's what I would request. EJ, did you want to start?
Yeah, my only comment and question is, I understand county staff, I understand, including planning staff and council. I don't understand the outreach to supervisors or why we would need their, I know we would want their buy-in. I don't know why we need their input on the MOU specifically.
Sean, I'll address the question that is more specifically. I'm concerned about them getting wind of something and feeling like we're overstepping. And I'd like to have the freedom to speak to them if, in fact, it feels like that's going to happen. You know, we did that once before. It was objected to. I just want to make clear, I don't think the intent on my part is not to proactively go out to the supervisors and start lobbying, but I want to have, if the county staff says, hey, these guys are starting to ask questions, rather than relying on the RMA staff to present it so that we can talk about intent and calm any fears that may come up, you know, that's really the intent. It's not to proactively go after and start lobbying the county supervisors. It's just the awareness that if somebody starts questioning it, if it becomes problematic, I have the ability to go have those conversations.
I think I understand the intent now.
Yeah.
My request would be that if that starts to happen,
Uh-huh.
invite them to one of these meetings and we have that conversation with
Well,
them.
Yeah, that certainly would be the intent, but I just don't, it was the mayor objected very strenuously to those conversations taking place without it being deliberated, discussed. That's why I wanted to bring it forward.
Yeah, I think I would still prefer those conversations be had at one of these meetings than,
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
that's my only tweak to
Okay.
the action is that the discussion be brought here
Staff.
with the super.
So issue.
So
it
the
goes
county
beyond
staff,
Yeah.
beyond county staff, beyond county council, planning, all that kind of
Okay,
stuff.
got it.
And
Okay.
conversations with supervisors start happening. I'd rather those conversations happen here at our meetings. Yeah,
Okay, good enough. That seems fairly straightforward.
sorry.
Dan, do you have any comments, questions?
I just want to make sure I'm clear on what EJ just said. Can you say that again? You want what conversations do they have place?
He's asking for permission and or to make it clear that if previously supervisors wanted to be read into what we're trying to do, fears of overstepping, when they want to have those clarifications and conversations,
They can zoom in
that happens here and at our meetings
for supervisors,
but
as far as planning staff.
go ahead.
So as a very practical matter,
Yeah.
I would start with Ariel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let me back up even further. Here's my comments. I'm very interested in Erica's provision. Let's call it Erica's provision. You know, you name certain laws after certain people. This will be Erica's provision on this completeness thing. I
Sure.
think that's brilliant. I said to David Madero's touchdown, because I think it is a touchdown, because it makes it mandatory. Everything that we're suggesting. So that's in city attorney, I'll tell you. I think John would agree with me that making this a mandatory process,
Brilliant.
and the leverage being the
Yeah.
completeness,
Yeah, brilliant.
home run.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in that paragraph. I would like to see it. Are we gonna see it before it starts going around?
I think, it would be at the same time. The problem is,
What,
do you
the same
want to
time as
wait?
what?
So when it is generated, when that work product is generated
Mhm.
at the same time it goes to the county or would be available to go to the
It's not,
county.
we
it would
can't
come
see
to you
it
guys.
before it goes to the
I
county?
think you can see it. The problem is for us to deliberate on it, we need to wait 2 weeks for our next meeting.
Yeah,
And that becomes the challenge. So
because it's an action.
I-
item.
It's a big one.
I know, I'm asking you to trust me and to let us at least, because again, this is the first pass, we're making the first pitch.
Okay,
And-
as a practical back to practical matter then. So assuming
Exactly.
this provision gets done and it's beautiful, it should be like an additional gospel in the New Testament. Erica's provision. is one of the best provisions ever written. So now this thing's ready to start talking to people. I would start with Ariel.
Yeah.
And then, because she might say, well, what about this? What about that? Whatever. And there might be a need based
Yeah.
on what she says to adjust something. Then go to Abraham.
Uh-huh.
RMA, RMA is like garbage and public works and a whole bunch of other stuff. So it's pretty much the planning department that we're
Absolutely,
talking about.
absolutely, yeah.
And then once you get Ariel and Abraham to do the sign of the crossover, we're done. Now you can go to the supervisors and say, hey, this is what we've been talking about. Do you want to zoom in or come to a meeting or something? Is that what you're thinking, EJ? Invite them, maybe even? Certainly, District 2, Colin.
I think John was also very concerned that it get to the county council immediately as well. And I
Yeah,
would
that's
take his suggestion as
Sure.
well, so. But yeah, that, what you've outlined makes perfect sense, so, great, thank you. Jackie, David, you guys,
You go ahead, David.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be delicate, but but we've had county supervisors attend our meetings in the past,
we've had.
and
think
I don't
one,
know
yes.
if anything came out of that, to our benefit on this particular subject. And so if we were to invite them here, as has been suggested, how is that gonna work? I mean, where do we, where do we go from there if it's just one person?
Sure,
So I'm a little confused.
so David.
So I'm thinking that, I think I understand, I think again, I think I need to understand, how are you gonna approach that? And what are you gonna get, what is gonna be the outcome that we should expect from this committee? And I see where you're going you're going with this, and it'll help expedite this a little bit faster than where we've been going, and being that we got such a short period of time to work this through. So I'm in favor of doing that.
Mhm.
But I'm a little confused. If it is a delicate process, what would be the outcome we're looking for here?
Comfortable with that. Yeah, so a couple of thoughts. I think that we need to get it to them. We've had now 2 meetings where the county staff has been unable to attend. They've got a lot of other responsibilities that they're beholden to. And so, simply asking them to attend our meetings to review this stuff, I don't think is practical at all. I think we have to take it to them, make it available to them, and be able to accommodate their schedule and their workday to get those initial consultations done, have those initial conversations for them to then get their feedback. And then I would absolutely invite them back to give us, whatever feedback they have so that we can deliberate as a group. Now, EJ's point about the supervisors, I think that at some point the county staff's going to start, having a conversation with them, but I think that's going to be down the road some piece. If individual supervisors choose to come on and listen and participate, just so they get a little better understanding, I think that's great. But I will say in previous conversations with Colin Kosmicki, and not related to this specifically, to this subject matter specifically, he's very reluctant to comment and interject on deliberations within the city as a supervisor. He just doesn't, it's like, well, Colin, what do you think about this? He does not like to voice an opinion because he just doesn't feel it's appropriate. And so that's why, I know we've had him attend by Zoom. I don't believe he made any comments, didn't say anything. And I believe, I can't say for certain, but I believe that's basically why.
Are you gonna do this alone?
Well, I think it is a question of, I'm asking you to allow me to direct it, but if there's somebody, if I think that it should be done with, a couple of us or somebody in particular because of relationships, then I think it may.
What about staff?
So absolutely, I'd love, absolutely. Dawn's out.
Yeah.
So that's part of why I'm asking for a little latitude here is Dawn's out. I'm leaving on Monday for 5 weeks. But, I'll be available by phone and Zoom and so forth. So
Will you chair the next meeting in
I
2
will
weeks?
not be in attendance physically at
but
the
you-
next meeting.
okay.
Yeah, Liz and I have been talking about the next couple of meetings. I will not be physically here. I will be, I'll be in, the next meeting. I think I'll be in Las Vegas. And I'm planning to attend by Zoom. And the meeting following that, I will be in Italy.
And this is the October 9th meeting?
Correct.
I will not be here.
Okay.
Okay, can we stick to the point?
Yeah,
Sorry. it's
Sorry.
getting
No,
really
my
late.
apologies. Yeah, please. If
Yeah,
any-
so I think
Yeah,
for your action ask.
Yeah.
I think the timing for me and just knowing now that you're
Sure.
gonna be physically out of the area and maybe out of the country. When do you propose that you want to do this? And to address committee member Sabathier's concern. I'm not sure that the supervisors is where you need to go, but first of all, I want to say this, I don't feel this is a Brown Act violation. I think it's a necessary thing.
Yeah.
But I think you should start with the county staff, the planning
Yeah.
staff. And if you want to talk to the planning commissioners, the county level, or even the supervisors,
Uh-huh.
I think you have to have the product completed, the
Okay.
thing that's going to come back to us and be voted on. And then you have that product, but I don't think that should preclude you talking to the staff
right.
and just talking to them,
Right.
But I think a formal presentation might be a good way to present it to the county at a planning commission meeting.
Yeah.
As an formal presentation, if you want to do slides, whatever.
Yeah.
And then also, if you feel that that needs to go to the supervisors, maybe present it to them, but be prepared for lots of questions.
Yeah, of course.
But I think you have to have the finished polished product
Agreed.
and at least before you go presenting that, it has to go past their county council.
Yeah. So I think that really the focus here after everybody's comments is on county staff, the planning staff and county council is really what we're talking about. And then soliciting their comments, feedbacks, hopefully in writing, and then inviting them back for us to have maybe a roundtable discussion with any questions and comments.
Make sure you take a dozen of the blueberry donuts when you talk to staff from the
Okay,
bakery.
that I can manage.
Okay.
Okay, okay. Any public comments? There's no one in the chambers. Any public comment on Zoom? Okay, no closing public comment. Any additional comments or questions from the committee? Okay, do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
So, well, I
Oh,
think we need to state.
yeah,
the motion.
sorry. The motion to direct the chair, Chair Moritana, to begin outreach to supervisors. No, to begin outreach to senior, do I do a friendly amendment?
You
Or,
don't need to, you just need to say what you want the motion to be.
okay, motion to direct Chair Moritana to begin outreach to supervisors and senior county planning staff on the intent of our agreement.
Do you have a second or?
I'll second it.
Okay. Okay, roll call.
Committee member DeBreeze,
Yes.
committee member Maderos,
Yes.
committee member Morris Lopez,
Yes.
committee member Sabathia,
No.
Chair Martirana.
No.
Motion carried.
Okay. Yeah, probably for the same reason. I get why I'm honoring what your comments and I will follow. So,
Oh, wait, I missed the motion. Why did you guys vote no?
Because she.
I admittedly
she
wasn't paying
included-
attention. I thought she just said what you guys were talking about. What was,
She included the supervisors and didn't.
and who you can talk to?
Correct, and did not mention the county council. But that was the.
Hold on. And EJ, you said no, you voted no because you want the supervisor discussions to happen in,
Correct.
I agree with EJ on that. Yeah, sorry.
Can we have a second motion? I don't know. Hey, John, is there any, what can we, is there anything we can do
What would
to
Mr.
sort of
Roberts-
correct?
The motion you just made passed, correct?
It did.
Yeah, but one of the I votes wasn't paying attention, me.
Can we? Yeah, so is there anything we can do?
You can ask for a reconsideration of the motion.
I can do that?
Yes.
Well, how about I do it?
Okay,
since
I
was
would
next?
like to ask for for a reconsideration of the motion. Is that directed toward Jackie? Because she made the motion, John?
Yes.
Okay, Jackie, I'd ask that you reconsider the motion.
I accept the reconsideration.
Do we, so then does she restate it or can anybody restate the motion?
She or anyone can.
Okay, do you want to do that? You want to have EJ or? EJ, do you want to?
You said we had to vote on the reconsideration.
I think we have to vote on the reconsideration.
Okay. Okay, so we need a roll call vote, John, then on
We
the
have a brand new
reconsideration?
motion,
Yes.
Okay, great.
There's a motion to reconsider made
Motion.
by who?
By myself.
Okay, is there a second on the motion?
Second.
All in favor of reconsidering the motion?
I
Aye.
I'd like to take a roll call vote
You'd
just
like,
for
please,
the record. I'm
please.
sorry.
Please.
It's unanimous, it's right, everybody's nays.
Make it happen, I'm not making her mad, so you should do what she says.
I keep yours on my good
I
side.
don't want to get in trouble.
I know.
Okay, calling the question, Committee Member DeBreeze. Committee Member Maderos.
Yes.
Committee Member Morris Lopez.
Yes.
Committee Member Sabathia.
Yes.
Chair Martirana.
Aye. Thank you.
Motion carried to reconsider. And then now you can state your
Okay.
motion.
Who do you
Do you
vote?
want to do it?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
I move that we direct the chair to begin outreach to senior county staff and county council on the intent of this agreement. Memorandum of understanding.
Right. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
I seconded it
Roll
first.
call?
I seconded it before David did.
What?
I seconded it before you did. I did. I got it in.
Was a tie.
We're gonna arm wrestle for that one.
Chair.
Yes, sir.
Who cares? You did it.
Roll call. I heard David second, so.
Okay, first by Committee Member Sabathia and second by Committee Member Maderos.
Yes, please.
Committee Member DeBreeze. Committee Member Maderos.
Yes.
Committee Member Morris Lopez.
Yes.
Committee Member Sabathia.
Yes.
Chair Martirana.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much, everyone. The last thing on my agenda is adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
The next regular meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. We have a motion to adjourn in a second. Roll call vote.
Committee Member DeBreeze.
Yes, I agree. We should adjourn.
Committee Member Maderos.
Yes.
Committee Member Morris Lopez.
Yes.
Committee Member Sabathia.
Yes.
Chair Martirana.
Aye, it is 7:43. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you all. Yay.